Alright guys, after many requests I decided to do a little bit of a jungler breakdown. And we're mainly going to be talking about how much gank threat do these champions have. And before we go into actually making the list, I want to put a premise is that it's really champion dependent on which champion that we play as well. If we are going to be playing, for example, Aurelion Sol, we are much less threatened by a Kayn than if we, for example, play Victor. It's a really interesting way of looking at this. The only thing that I'm going to be covering here in this list is what do these champions want to be doing when it comes to their ideal clearing pattern. We're not going to be talking how do our champions interact with these champions. That would make it way too much too in-depth, and this is eventually for you to figure out in the long run. We're gonna take a pretty chill approach to this one. We're gonna just list these champions off one by one. I'm gonna be explaining how these champions work, what they want to be doing, and we're gonna be categorizing them as well, so you can get a pretty basic idea of what these champions just will be doing in the game. So take yourself a nice little a tea or coffee, sit back, because we're gonna be covering all of these junglers here. I'm gonna start off with Shyvana. Shyvana is a very interesting champion because pre-level 6, she does not have any dashes. Her ult is basically her dashing ability. Pre-level 6, she's also looking to farm. I would say Shyvana is a low threat jungler because proper warding and leaning will go a long way versus this champion. What you'll see against medium threat and against low threat jungles, very good warding and leaning is usually going to be the key to being able to still play aggressive while not being threatened by them. In the high threat jungles, very good warding and leaning will still work, but sometimes they might get an angle upon us. And then against the extreme threat jungles, these are jungle champions that even good warding and leaning will not work against. We got the special threat jungles, which is special cases like Nocturne, Eve. The reason why we put Nocturne and Eve in the special threat jungles, because pre-level 6, these champions are not threatening. The pre-level 6, I would put them in low threat jungles. But once they're level 6, they get into the extreme threat category. So this is very interesting. The Nocturne, the Evelyn, pre-level 6, not dangerous at all. But post-level 6, one of the most problematic champions to play around. We're going to continue. Graves. I would say Graves is like Shyvana. Graves is a low threat jungler. Because Graves does not have any CC in his kit. He mainly has damage and he only has a very small dash. So if we are warding and leaning accordingly versus Graves, he almost never gets the chance to gank us. And that's a very interesting way to approach it. Because Graves in itself, he's not the most threatening jungle. You can easily play aggressive against that. Then we got Rengar. I would put Rengar in the special threat category. Pre-level 6, he's not that threatening on mid because he usually doesn't jump from bushes because the bushes are so far away. So if we have proper vision out in the first 6 levels, it's going to be very hard for him to be ganking us consistently, but proper warding and leaning. We have Volibear. Volibear is actually a very high threat. And the reason why Volibear is very high threat is because of how fast that he actually is. For all the mid champs, it's going to be really hard to deal with a Volibear. If you, for example, play an Ahri post level 6, or you play, we don't play LeBlanc in the MLS, but a very good example is LeBlanc with her dash. Volibear would be low threat for LeBlanc, right? If we take any other champions right here. Yeah, I would say main example would be Ahri, or for example Galio E, right? Volibear is much less threatening versus those champions. Or champions with self-heal, like for example Aniston, Ahri Charm, Syndra QE. It's really hard for Volibear to gank these champions consistently when they have those self-peeling abilities up. So he can just walk at them and stun them, because that's what Volibear does. But still, I would count Volibear as a high threat jungle. Then we have Sejuani. I would put Sejuani in a high threat jungle as well. Pre-level 6, right? Proper warding and leaning does usually deny her. But post-level 6, her ult is very hard to dodge. And it's a long stun too. So if you get hit by that, you usually die. So this is definitely a high threat jungle. And also pre-level 6, she can get some ganks going and make your life annoying, because she does have some CC and she does have a dash. Next up, we got Yi. So Yi is a champion that is slightly more threatening than the Graves and Shyvana, but definitely less threatening than the Volibear and the Sejuani. He is a champion that is usually looking to full clear. He wants to be farming it up. The high threat junglers, these are clear gank heavy junglers. These are more the farm heavy jungles. and Yi is one of them as well, but he has a little bit more threat than the Shyvana and the Graves, because Yi actually has this dash and deals a lot of damage. So it's not necessarily that he will CC you and then he'll kill you. No, it's mainly with other CC from maybe his mid laner. If he gets onto you, you will die because of the insane amount of damage that he deals. Then we also got Hecarim. Hecarim is actually very similar to Yi in my experience. Hecarim is actually a farming jungle. This champion can gank, but his core Hecarim it's a farming champion. This champion needs items to work. This champion is not a support. So what he'll usually do is he'll go for full clear, and then he might do a gank, and then post 6 he will start getting stuff off with his ultimate. Post 6 he definitely becomes a little bit threatening, but once again with proper warding and leaning, because of how linear these champions are, it's going to be pretty doable to put yourself in a position where you do not die versus them. I would put Kha'Zix in this category as well. Very similar champion, also wants to be farming it up early, has a dash, will be able to kill you if you are not leaning and warding to the right side. If you're able to be spotting him early, then you're in a great position. Post level 6, he becomes a little bit more threatening with his ult, being able to get him invisible, of course, but overall medium threat. Just like Diana, just like Kayn. Very similar champions. They're all looking to farm. All these champions are looking to farm one side to another, get their camps. And then Kayn can go through walls, Diana has her dash, but Diana really becomes problematic post level 6 with her ult. But before that, not that problematic. Like pre-6, proper warding and leaning will do the job. Next up, Zed. Zac. I would put Zac in the high threat jungles right here. He has a long dash, he can come from very creative angles, and he will make, he will be looking to gank. He's also looking to scale up, Zac, but if he finds opportunities to gank, he will usually go for it. So definitely be careful of Zac ganks. Next up we got Taliyah. Taliyah falls very much in the same category as these guys right here. A lot of farming. This Taliyah likes to do a lot of farming, but she also has okay gank threat. Because of her ult, post level 6, and because of the fact that she has pretty long range, so if she flicks you back with her W, and she stuns you, you're usually dead, and she has a lot of damage too. So I quickly want to elaborate a little bit more onto Kayn. The reason why Kayn is medium threat and not low threat is because Kayn can actually go through walls, right? This guy can come from creative angles, he can come from behind, which is not something that the Graves and the Shyvana can do. So Kayn is definitely a little bit more threatening than these two junglers, then while he's actually quite weak in the early game. Warwick. I would put Warwick in the medium threat one. Mainly threatening post his ult. He's just gonna run at you and look to gank you, but he's very easy to spot. He's very linear champion, so proper warding and leaning will do the job. Bel'Veth, extremely high threat ganking jungle, extreme high threat. I wouldn't put it in extreme yet, because it's a completely different category, but this champion will mess you up. Yes, it's a champion that will look to farm up as well, but this champion has a lot of dashes in her kit. Her ganking is really good. She's going to be able to dash twice in your direction, and if she lands her W, which is good setup, she gets another dash. So she's probably going to be able to land 3 dashes. So she's going to be from one side of the lane to other side in the lane within a second. And as a mage, especially as a Victor or something like that, you're not going to be able to outrun that because of the amount of dashes that she has. So be very careful against Bel'Veth. Proper warding and leaning will be able to like fend her off for a decent while, but she will sometimes still be able to find opportunities onto you. So definitely be careful versus Bel'Veth. Kindred, I would also put Kindred in pretty high threat. Slow, it's very annoying. He does a lot of damage, and is also pretty quick on farming, and can also come from creative angles. So because of all of her dashes, so be careful of Kindred. Nunu, our first extreme threat champion. The reason Nunu is an extreme threat champion is because of his snowball, right? It's so hard to get around the snowball. What I want you to understand is that these extreme threat champions force you to play differently. The high threat champions, right? These champions, basically, you can play your own game, your natural game that you want to be playing into them. If you play all the fundamentals properly, you can do that. But these extreme threat champions, they surpass the fundamentals. Nunu ganks are so dangerous that we cannot outrun them. And unless we have a little bit of self-peel, this guy will mess us up. Very good other examples of extreme threat champions is Shaco. because of invisibility. He can 3-camp gank. Shaco is one of the best gankers in the game. He's gonna be behind you and you're gonna die. So Shaco, extremely problematic champion. Viego. I would put Viego in low threat champions. Very good warding and leaning. Always works well versus Viego. You can see him coming through his shroud. And the only thing that he can gank you really with is his W. So if you ward and lean properly and you spot Viego in advance, you should never be able to get ganked by a Viego. It's not a high threat jungle. It's actually a jungler that doesn't gank that well unless he uses Fog of War properly. And mainly he's looking to farm as well, right, these junglers. Zed as well. Zed is very special threat. We don't see much Zed jungle anymore, but Zed jungle in itself is just going to look to farm up to level 6 because he doesn't gank that well before that, and he doesn't deal much damage before that. Zed only starts becoming a real champion post level 6. And post level 6, that's when he really starts looking to kill you if you disrespect. Very quick clearer, the Zed though. Extremely quick on clearing Zed. So be careful with that. He will be level 6 extremely quickly. And he might outtempo your jungle, be 6 first, and then he's looking to gank you. Echo. I think Echo is a champion that puts beautifully here in the medium threat champions. These champions want to farm. Echo wants to farm as well. But if he finds a nice opportunity, and especially if it's a good Echo player will be able to have a very nice position on his W. And in that case, you will be under a lot of threat because his W is a very long stun. If you get hit by that, most likely dying. Yeah, there's not much Jax jungle going on around these days, but I would put Jax jungle in the medium threat. He's mainly going to be farming, but also very linear right here. If you spot him, just walk away from him. There's not much that he can do from it. Just ward and lean properly, and you're going to be fine versus all of the... not these. All of these champions. Proper warding and leaning will be enough to hold them off in the early game. Vi is special threat as well. Yeah, I would put Vi in special threat because Vi pre-level 6 is kind of low to medium threat. She's very linear in approach. You can clearly see her coming. It's very clear what she's going to do. She's going to charge her Q and she's going to Q on you. And if you have a ward on one side and you can lean towards that side, it's really easy to just walk away from that and stay outside of her range. But post 6, her threat goes through the roof. I would even put her in the extreme threat category, post 6, because of how good her point and click ultimate is at setting up ganks, especially with certain mid laners in the game as well. Karthus, low threat. He's going to be looking to farm. He has no dashes, very limited CC. Yes, he has a slow, but usually that slow is not enough to be able to get good quality ganks off. So Karthus, I'll put him in low threat. Then we go to Amumu, very similar to all the rest of the medium threat champions, just looking to farm. And if we can see him coming, we're not that threatened by him, but he will look to gank. So ward and lean properly versus Amumu, because this champion, if he gets onto you, you will die. Rama's pretty high threat, especially post level 6 when he's also able to ult at you. Has a lot of CC in his kit. He's really fast, so proper warding and leaning doesn't always work versus this champion. It's not a good farmer too, so Ramas will be looking to gank. Prepare some Ramas on your lane if you see him. I would put Rek'Sai under the extreme threat category. Proper warding and leaning goes a long way versus Rek'Sai, comparatively to Shaco and Nunu. But the real problem with Rek'Sai is that he can come from every angle and he can circumvent some of your wards. So Rek'Sai can actually go around your wards because of how many tunnels he's able to create. And he can find gank paths through, for example, your raptors or through other walls that you just see him unburrow. And it's a very deadly jungle champion with a lot of damage, that if you get hit and you lose your flash, you're going to be under extreme threat and you have to change the way that you approach the game. So I would definitely put him under extreme threat. But yeah, this also scales with game knowledge, right? The better the Rek'Sai is, the more threat you're going to be under. I would say in the MLS ranks, I would say he's going to be a little bit less threatening, but it always is in what perspective that you're going to be looking at it. Ivern, high threat. Why is Ivern high threat? Because Ivern can come from both sides. You don't know how he's going to clear. It's really hard to... He doesn't clear linearly. He doesn't clear top to bot. No, he's go top to bot, then bot to top. Very strange clearing pattern. So it's really hard to track this guy. He also has a Q and a big slow. So if he's able to get behind you and slow you, you're going to be you're going to be royally screwed. But if you can see him coming and you can actually see him walk at you and possibly dodge out on his Q, then it's actually completely fine. But because he's so unpredictable, I would put him in the high threat jungle because he's also looking to gank. This champion will gank. This champion will support. Trundle. I would put Trundle in... Well, Trundle is really champion dependent, right? If you play LeBlanc, you put him in low threat. But if you play a champion like Victor, he's definitely medium threat category. Because he will just run at you. He will pillar you off your escape path. So if you have no escapes afterwards, it's going to be really hard to get away from him. So I would put Trundle in medium threat. Depending on what champion that you're playing. Yeah, just keep it at that. Next up we got the Maokai. I would put Maokai in high threat jungle. Because Maokai post level 6 has extremely high gank threat. And pre-level 6 he is also quite threatening because Maokai is a ganker. He's not a farmer. He wants to get stuff going on the map. So this guy will be on your lane looking to W you and then push you back into his teammate. So this guy is looking to 3-camp gank. He's looking to gank all the time. So prepare ganks when you're playing against a Maokai. Jarvan, high threat jungle as well. Very high threat jungle. He can level 3 gank. He can farm up to 6 and then just root you with his Cataclysm. This champion is extremely threatening in the way that he goes about. This is a ganking jungler, not a farming jungle. Mainly, he's gonna probably look to 3-camp gank somewhere. But he can also just full clear and gank afterwards. But he will be ganking a lot. So watering him properly pre-6 and post-6 especially respect if you don't see him. Xin Zhao, I would put Xin Zhao under the medium threat jungles. He's not the best ganker, but if you misstep and he gets onto you, you will die. A little bit in the rest of this category, he will be looking to farm a little bit more. And he's rather looking to skirmish in the jungle. That's what Xin Zhao wants. He's a very good fighter, very good skirmisher. Not the best ganker. Proper warding and leaning will do the job. Elise, definitely high threat jungle. The Cocoon is very hard to deal with. She is very creative in her jungle pathing. This champion does not farm well, guys. This champion is ganking all the time. So be careful when you're playing against Elise. You need good vision. Good vision will go a long way, but still sometimes she can just jump with her spider form from the other side to your minions, then transform and then still land cocoons. This champion is very threatening in the way that she ganks. Wukong. Wukong is pretty low threat. Pre-level 6, he's just not that strong. And post-level 6, only his ult makes him good in ganks. Yes, there's small windows where he can be good. I want you to compare Wukong a little bit like a Shyvana. Wukong is just like Shyvana. He's looking to farm up all the time. And once he gets strong, that's when he becomes really good in fights and skirmishes. Not so much in ganks. Lee Sin, high threat jungle. He can farm, but usually this is a ganking jungler. This guy has a lot of mobility. This guy is slow. This guy will mess you up. Definitely when you're playing against Lee Sin, expect Lee Sin to do a lot of ganks. Because in the end, Lee Sin is not the best farming jungle. And he's much better at ganking. So with Skarner, we're putting Skarner in the new Skarner. This is not the old Skarner. This is the updated, reworked Skarner. Yeah, this guy can go through walls. And I've seen some clips of this. This is a new category of extreme threat. Because this guy can walk through walls, like scoop you up and drag you down to a place where you don't want to be in. And this champion has a lot of utility. He doesn't farm well at all. This is a pure utility ganking champion, guys. So be very careful when you play against the Skarner. Next up we got Nidalee, mainly a farming jungle, very strong early game jungle. Definitely can do some good ganks. So I would put her in the medium threat. She mainly works well with setup. So if you're playing versus a Pantheon, for example, or any other champions that have point and click CC, be very careful versus Nidalee, because if she lands that spear, she deals a lot of damage and she will one-shot you. But in general, she's looking to farm the Nidalee, very fast clearer. And with proper warding and leaning, we will be able to get away from her. Udyr in the low threat category, extremely linear. With wards, this guy will never be able to get a gank off if we ward him properly, because he's very slow. The only thing that you got to be very careful about is some of your leaning. If you lean towards, if you try to walk into the jungle rather than towards your tower, and your jungler is not there, then this guy might be able to chase you with his ghost. So this champion really depends how we deal with it. on how good our leaning and warding fundamental is. If our warding and leaning fundamental is good, this champion will not be able to make anything work. If it's not good enough, he might get stuff done on you. Fiddlesticks, special threat. Post level 6, extremely threatening with his ult. He can come from creative angles. If he lands his R, he can practically one-shot him alone. He can basically one-shoot you alone. He doesn't even need a teammate. He can just ult you, kill you. That's what Fiddlesticks does. So be careful of Fiddlesticks post 6. Pre 6, not that threatening at all. Very slow champion and very linear in its approach as well. Proper warding and leaning will do the job. We got Poppy. Poppy is very interesting because usually Poppies run Hex Flash. So because of her running Hex Flash and Poppy not being a farming jungle, Poppy is a ganking jungle. She's tree camping, ganking, ganking, ganking. That's what Poppy does. So keep that in mind. Poppy's a high threat jungle. If you play against her, she will be looking to mess you up. Same with Sylas. Sylas is not a farming jungle. This champion does not farm well in the jungle at all. He's super slow on his clear. So is Poppy, right? So this guy, because he's so slow on his clear, he will be looking to gank you all the time. This champion will flip a level 3 gank. That's what Sylas Sylas jungles will be doing. Let's take a look. We have the Gragas. The Gragas is actually medium threat. Very linear in his approach, but post 6 can be annoying with his ult. Also, like, not the best farmer, right? But he can farm it up. Most Gragas will just be full clearing and then possibly looking for angles, but mainly he's going to be playing post level 6. Talon is actually pretty high threat jungle. He does farm well, but because he can come over so many creative walls and because he has so much damage, I definitely think this is a high threat jungle, which you got to be very careful about. Lilia, low threat jungle. Very linear in her approach. Yes, she's fast, but proper warding leaning will make it impossible for her to get any ganks off. Pantheon. Pantheon is... I would put Pantheon very similar to... Yeah, I think Pantheon is pretty high threat jungle. Post level 6, he's very annoying with his ult. And his W is point and click. He could come from creative angles. This champion does not farm well in the jungle as well. So whenever you're playing against Pantheon jungle, expect to get ganked. And Mordekaiser is low threat, very linear, no dashes, really weak jungle. I haven't seen it in years, Mordekaiser jungle, so I'm not sure why it's in this list. But I'll just put it in here. Mordekaiser jungle, he will not be able to hurt you. The only thing you gotta be respectful about is his ult. Do not get in his ult range post level 6. But by proper warding and leaning, we will be able to avoid that. This champion will be farming all the time, this Mordekaiser. There's one champion that's missing. As far as I know, I'm going to be taking a look at the jungle tier list on my next slide here as well. Okay, so we got Brand missing. We got Briar missing. We're going to be covering these two. So Brand is a low threat jungle as well. We would put Brand in here. It's both B and R, so I can't do B and R. So let's do Brand. Okay, put Brand in here because he's very similar to Shyvana. He clears extremely fast. But his gank threat is quite low because of him not having any dashes. He needs to get in range to get his CC off. So you won't really get ganked by him. This champion really becomes a problem afterwards. Is this just a scaling jungle? This is just a carry. He will not be able to gank you. Briar is high threat. Briar is one that we are going to put in here. This is where Briar is. And the reason why Briar is high threat is because of how good her gank setup is. Like, she can just jump over walls. She runs at you, she stuns you, and she deals a lot of damage. Briar is a very good jungler to gank you. This champion can farm, but this champion can also gank. And mainly she will look to get ganks because most of the time ganking for her is so easy.